Oh, Marion says there's an audio issue.
All right, let me try that again. Marian, let me know if you are good there. I'll just do a quick intro again. Sorry. I
Wait a minute. Just wait before you do the intro.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now? It says that you should be. I've got a
Someone in the
green
chat
now.
say something. Confirm that you can hear this.
Yeah, there's just about a 10-second lag. So,
Let's just give them a minute.
yeah. Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
So, welcome back to Swatches Art Challenge live stream. It's been about 6 months since we done a stream on the channel. Appreciate
Time
you,
goes by
yeah,
too fast.
sticking with us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Clint.
I'm
This is
Diana.
Diana, and we have the guest with us, Nino, a friend of ours.
Hi guys.
He's a Magic Gathering artist
And a
and
Blizzard artist.
and a Blizzard artist.
That's right.
And he also teaches one of the classes with Swatches Academy. And we thought we'd just be more fun to have you come by and look at some of what the people are doing today.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to be here. These submissions are actually pretty solid, so
Yeah,
I'm excited to go through them with you guys.
yeah. The great thing about this is it just is open to everybody. You know, all they need to do is just pick up a ticket to enter and go from there. So we will be taking questions possibly for a little while after the stream, or if we are reviewing your specific artwork during the stream, feel free to put a question in the chat, and we'll try to answer that while we're doing your little review. Otherwise, we're going to just be giving you our thoughts on these submitted concepts and tips maybe for improving a little direction on that. And if you're unfamiliar with what the challenge is, you can see the little brief here. This is what the participants were working from in order to create their concepts. And this is also available out on the Swatches Discord if you want to just give it a shot yourself for fun. Share it on the Discord. You're welcome to do so. So this is all being, it's kind of a fictional board game, a fictional whodunit mystery board game, and we are creating images that might go in that fictional game. And these are the clues that the player might find throughout the game in the mansion location. They had a selection of 14 different clues they could choose from, totally up to them, and just a brief description there for each one of those. Feel free to go download this if you want to read it, or just pause the video if you want to read all of those, and we're not going to do that. And just gave them a handful of kind of style, direction of the sort of images and the feel that we were going for. Okay, so that gives you kind of a point of reference of what we are going for with the art challenge. And Nino, you've had a chance to take a look over these earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I had a chance to look at all the submissions, and again, I thought they were pretty solid. And my understanding is it should be a little bit more of like a spot illustration, something more like a simple background or something along those lines. But I mean, the good thing about these is that I think a lot of the submissions went like above and beyond. We might have to like tone them down a little bit, and I think that's it's
Yeah.
better to go a little bit further. So
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do it that way. And I think that just shows a lot of the enthusiasm for like wanting to develop the story and develop the scene. And that's
right.
great to see. I will pull this up because there are a couple of pieces that this sort of applies to. In the style guide, I pulled up these images of Olga, another artist. I've never met them, but I liked the pieces. And the way that this artist has arranged these so that they had their, in this case, multiple props and just a little like area next to that prop, whatever surface that it's sitting on. And that would be a really good way to arrange the scene. So that's kind of what we're going to be using for the direction as we're looking at these. The idea being that these images could be used on a card or in a booklet or whatever, and they could kind of fade to white.
They don't need to have a full
Yeah.
scene, full image behind them, right? So it's something between like the item on a white background and then a full scene, kind of halfway.
You're just giving a little context.
Mhm.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and just get started. No particular order here, just the way that they've come up on my screen. Let's start with Verna. So let's pop this open. Now, if you are here in the chat, feel free to, announce yourself. Let me know that you are here.
There's 2 Vernas, so I'm not sure that I know of in our community, so I'm not sure which one is in the chat and if it's the same person that submitted the challenge. So I'm not sure.
All right, OBS is causing me to get some lag here, but hopefully that won't be too big of an issue. Okay, so for this one, they were going for the kind of the dark book with some strange beings and creatures depicted on the page. There's like hand scribbled notes, some pages torn out of it, and that's the idea that they were going for on this one. Looking at the description, looking at the sketch, how do you see these kind of meeting up, Nino? Do you feel like it's fulfilling that? Does it feel like maybe a change of direction is needed?
I think right now they're hitting the mark. I think of the 3, the ones that I prefer are the one on the right and then the bottom one. I think the way that like the silhouette reads, you can kind of see those torn out pages a little bit more strongly than the one on the left. I can see that they're already, they're starting to make the edges of the page a little bit more ragged on the bottom. I would make sure that that comes through a bit more on like the one on the right. And then overall, I would want to push, I think I would want to push more of like the creepiness of what's in the actual book. Again, I know it's a sketch, so I don't want to be harsh on the feedback. But, for example, the one on the top right there, I can't quite tell what it is, but something it reminds me of is like the Vitruvian Man, and something along those lines, where you have this kind of character that's like kind of splayed out or something like that. Whether it is some sort of Cthulhu character could be really interesting, but that's kind of it. Otherwise, like I feel like it's hitting the mark. We just need to push it a little bit further. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was on a similar route. I do like your observation about these 2 showing off the torn pages a little better than this one because of the silhouette. I think that's a good call. But they both are still very legible about what this is. So going forwards, it would be nice to have a little surface underneath of the book, and you can just kind of break it off at that sort of shape, right? It doesn't have to fill the whole thing. Is it sitting on an old wooden table? Is it a tablecloth? Just figure out, whatever surface it's sitting on and give a little indication of that. With the creature, I didn't describe what the creature was in the brief, but let's not, make sure you don't go too horror with it. It should be something that's just a little strange, but not necessarily monstrous.
It's something that makes you curious to know more,
Okay, some other thoughts. I just pulled up some reference images. If it were me, one of the things I would consider is maybe adding a few, this is an excessive amount of individual pages, but maybe a few extra pages that are kind of just sticking out, like extra notes that were stuck in the pages, just to change up the silhouette a little bit. Some extra notes and stuff written on those. This sort of thing, we were kind of talking about this the other day, is, maybe there's like a little clasp or something.
Kind of a latch on the end.
Yeah.
Or 2 latches if you wanted to.
Give them the idea that this thing
you really
could be
only have to draw
locked
it
up
once,
somehow.
right? And then you can duplicate it.
Yeah.
But it might be worth trying it out to make the book a little bit more unique and special.
Like that, maybe it even has those classic kind of reinforced corners on the book. You see that on a lot of the heavier books. And then This was just a image came across on Pinterest, very similar to kind of what we're looking at here.
It's actually really similar, but we did not see this when we were making
No.
the briefs.
This one is in pretty bad disrepair. Like it looks like all of the binding is coming apart there. But I do like the idea of perhaps some of the fabric or leather
Like bookmarks?
bookmarks, in there. That makes sense. And lastly, maybe something like this as well, just for the look of the kind of diagram. And I kind of liked your ideas. Like maybe it's the sort of Vitruvian man. It's a diagram of whatever this thing is. Maybe it's some strange fairy-looking thing. Even something like that might be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, no reason to get like particularly complicated with the lighting on this. Even the lighting on this illustration here is about right. It's fairly even. It's just making the scene very understandable. Although, if you were to keep most of the print in, say, black and white, what are your thoughts about making the inked notes like in a different color? Would that contrast too much, or would that make them pop a little better?
I mean, I'm looking at the references you guys pulled up on them. I'm on a bit of a delay as I look at it. But yeah, I mean, I think adding a little bit of color could help. I forget the right name for it, and I think I might be pushing it too far, but it's like when you have those really fancy letters as well, with all the kind of like green design.
Yeah, like illuminated, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like something along those lines to start, and just kind of, having little, scribbles to kind of go along that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, adding a little bit of like red or even like kind of blue or teal might be just enough. That's kind of like worn down. And then, yeah, I think that'd be fine there.
Yeah, that sounds good. So going forwards, Verna, choose between either one of these. Those are both acceptable, I think, going forwards. Just keep in mind some of the notes we talked about, and then you will, as with everyone, will have 2 more weeks in order to work on it, and we'll have another live stream where we will look at the finals. All right, thanks for participating. Hopefully that was helpful. Let's open the next one. This is by We. Okay, so we have got the serpentine dagger on this concept. Went with a couple of variations here. Now, yeah, the serpentine dagger definitely coming across. I like that, very visible. But this kind of hits back what we were talking about a bit earlier, which is maybe overdeveloped, which is kind of like good problem, bad problem mix, because it really expands the story, but it also gets to the point a little bit where the focal point becomes unsure of which item is the clue item.
There's a lot of objects now.
Yeah.
Whereas the main focus of this particular brief was the dagger. Now we have a lot of things which potentially all could be clues, right? And there's several things of the same size or even larger, more centrally placed than the dagger, right? So that starts to create kind of a competition between the items as to which one is the actual clue, right? So like here you have kind of the dagger kind of tucked back there, kind of here as well. It's almost becoming secondary here. I don't even know where it is in this one. So I think part of the solution is maybe eliminating some of the objects or downplaying them a bit. What do you think?
Yeah, on the whole, I would say just minimize it down to the one main object. Now, if you really do want to do the book, or there isn't, the other book option as well, then just do the book. Then don't worry about the dagger or the compass or the other items. Feel free to try those later on your own after the challenge if you got ideas for some cool props. But for this one, yeah, just pick out the major one Now, if you want to have like the dagger laying there and maybe it's kind of propped up a little bit by a book, then, that might be okay. Just to get like a little angle on the dagger and kind of be sitting up a little bit. But don't have the book open, because as soon as you open a book, kind of the visual narrative is it becomes the focal point. You need to look at what's in the book. That's my initial thoughts on this. How was that reading to you, Nino?
Yeah, I agree. I think the first thing that I look at is the book in this one.
Yeah.
Look at that kind of Cthulhu character immediately, and then my eyes kind of go around the page and then go to the dagger eventually. So again, like it's not bad, but the main issue is that we lose focus. Like if you were to, without any of the feedback that we were mentioning, if you were to pick one of these, I would go with the top left one where the dagger's kind of on that angle. It just brings more focus to it.
Yeah.
But again, it's still a little bit too busy there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were like a really simple solution to this, I feel, if you were to just go with this, you were mentioning to just go with the book, is you could basically remove the dagger, even remove the like the pocket watch,
Mm-hmm.
and then you could just put some like torn pages a little bit around the bottom of it, and then you have a clear focal point.
Yeah.
So it's totally up to you. And then my last thought is, I would probably remove the symbol. Like if you were to go with the dagger, I'd probably remove the symbol of the octopus on the bottom. It's cool, but it's really busy.
Yeah.
It kind of takes away from the blade overall.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, otherwise I think it's pretty solid.
A note to anyone who is doing the dagger or doing similar props in your own images is there is a wealth of really cool old historical weapons out there that some really masterful designers and crafters have made over the centuries. And they can be great starting points to get ideas for things like daggers. And, that's exactly what we do. Like, we don't design stuff from nothing. We go out there, we find some sort of cool reference. I went out to Pinterest, which is where I go find a lot of my stuff. And here's some cool daggers, right? Each one of them has a bit of a different flair, some different shapes to it. All right, now obviously we specified if you're doing the dagger for this challenge, it has a serpentine blade, but you could obviously adapt that. All kinds of neat different patterns and shapes to the handles, different materials that it's made out of. And I would say, hey, find one of those that kind of hits the direction that you like, and then start modifying it from there. And so that you get a balance between like the fantastical element and creativity that you're bringing with the kind of groundedness of the historical weapon. And that's where you're probably going to find a sweet spot. Okay. I think that works for this one. Appreciate you joining the challenge. And there are, I didn't say it earlier, there are obviously 12 entries here, or 11, looking at some people sent doubles. Okay. Elijah is up next. Oh, no, I clicked on the wrong one. Okay, we've got, this was Brody, yeah. Okay, Brody is going with the serpentine dagger that is being hid in the drawer. So this is a particularly challenging one to approach because it could potentially have a lot more things going on with it that you have to do. It is noted that there are other kind of random elements in the drawer. It's not just a completely empty drawer. And they've gone with a variety of interesting little items to put in here. I'm seeing a similar sort of thing here where the dagger is really cool. All right, I want to call that out first. We've got 3 nice dagger designs here. The other thing which is good, the drawer perspective, really well done. All right, I don't know if you freehanded that or whether you had like a 3D model that you were kind of checking against. That really works well too, and I feel like you thought through all of the items. But the biggest thing is the dagger's starting to feel a little too small for the size of the overall illustration for me. So I would be aiming to find a way to get that visually, take up more of the visual real estate. Yeah. So you guys are looking at this, Dinah. What are you thinking when you're taking a look at these pieces?
Yeah, I feel like it's again more the same issue happening again. And this happens frequently, where there's so many items that they're all kind of interesting and cool, where it becomes kind of unclear which one am I meant to look at, which one is the clue, right? Because you've got, like in this one, you've got a cool looking book and the dagger there, and then some, I don't know, it looks like rocks coming out of that pouch. You're not really sure what those are. And then here again, you've got like this cool looking diary right in there with the dagger. I think maybe one way to get around that would be to kind of eliminate those items. I would definitely eliminate the tentacle as well. We've had that coming through in almost every image. There's a tentacle, and just think about this. Like if you purchased this game, right, and you had a bunch of cards, and the cards had clues on them, and every single one had a tentacle on it, it would almost be kind of comical, right? So we want to try to avoid doing the most obvious, easy thing, which is like planting a tentacle on something. We want to try to make it mysterious, make it interesting, find some way to kind of connect it to the mythology without, doing the most obvious thing. So for this, what I would suggest is maybe the daggers are cool. There's nothing wrong with the daggers. All the designs are cool. But maybe zooming in a little bit closer, right? So that the dagger fills more of the frame, cropping in closer, and then eliminating some of the objects and maybe making it like if you were to open a desk drawer, right? There's already a crumpled up paper, like that's a good one. But maybe eliminating the rest of the stuff and just putting like stacks of papers, kind of like what Nino suggested before, like a stack of papers of notes. Just things that are there but are not overly interesting.
Yeah.
Under the dagger or around it. That's my suggestion. I don't know. What do you think, Nino? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually really like this one. Of course, got to crop in a little bit. That's pretty easily solved. But I love the dagger in A, and I love the dagger in C. I would go with. I think personally, you could have a really easy fix with this one. I think if you went with option C, and you could simplify this really easily. Like you could pretty much keep everything. What I would do is take the book and maybe desaturate that, make it kind of similar in color to the actual drawer there. Maybe like a kind of desaturated gray or like a desaturated kind of brown color there. Remove the little like gold bits around the corner just to get it less busy. And there's something on the looks like a tag on the end of the dagger. Get rid of that too. So simplify the color by desaturating it. Remove the like the Cthulhu coin, and maybe put some like silver coins around that same area and down towards the bottom left. And I think that could work really well because you'll simplify it. The colors will be a bit more muted on everything, but then the dagger will have that extra bit of saturation to make it stand out from the rest of it.
I like that idea of like it just being kind of some loose change, some pennies and nickels in the drawer. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the options I would go through if I was sketching it out is, okay, say that this is kind of just a business cabinet, and there's some old manila folders that have paper stuffed in there.
A paper clip.
Yeah, some paper clips, and just some folded old receipts, that sort of thing, right? Very uninteresting things that might be in the drawer so that the dagger stands out very clearly against them. The other thing is I would consider just changing the kind of drawer so that it's a smaller drawer. Like an old desk, they would have little drawers that go in kind of the stationary area up at the top, and they're only about that big, right? They're like that wide, and they're long and slender. Well, if you pulled out one of those little drawers, the dagger would take up most of it. Right? And so the idea is that there would be a lot less stuff to have to illustrate, and the focus could just go on that. I went around and found, like, this has got a cool like little side drawer. Like it's a little more interesting, a little smaller, or it's kind of like one of these. Like they're a little smaller, and maybe you could pull it out, and the dagger would fit in there and take up more of the overall room. I would consider something like that too.
It's
And
a possible solution, but you don't even need to do that. You can just crop in tighter, get
Mhm.
closer to the drawer.
and you can limit how much of this all that you're doing. You probably don't even need to do the top of this. You can just get up to the top of that frame there. Maybe not even anything down the side. I mean, you can tell that it's a drawer pulled forwards. I do like the idea of like the light kind of catching across
Part of
that
it being
open
in
area.
shadow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. And if you were to do that, I would consider adjusting so the light is not completely at the same angle as the drawer opening. So maybe it causes a little bit of a diagonal lean one way or the other with that light. So we're getting really picky with this, but it's such a clean drawing. It's such a good design for the daggers and stuff. So we're just having fun talking about it. Let me wrap it up on that one. Now, Elijah, I noticed your comment, so I know that you are with us here
Elijah
live.
is here.
So feel free to drop a comment or a question while we're taking a look at your piece here. Now, here with this piece, Elijah chose the display jars or the bell jars that were glass, and there are 3 of them. 2 of them have items in them. One of them has been broken open, and it is missing whatever its item was. And he's gone ahead and added this kind of wispy smoke coming out of it. I like that. I think that's a cool idea. And going for like some sort of old, I don't know, dehydrated hand or something. And like
Crispy hand.
a mini merd person skeleton. I also think that's cool. So all of these I feel are working pretty well to convey this topic. But Nino, let's say that this was yours and you were to push it a little bit more or to finish it. What's some of the things that you would be considering?
Yeah, I like all these ones. I think they're pretty solid. My favorite one is A. I just like that kind of bottom up angle. We're kind of looking up at it. It's a little bit more dynamic. I like the hierarchy of all these little displays there. Really, I mean, there's not too much to push on this one. Obviously, you have to go through and render it. But the only things that I would make sure are clear is that they're on display, like they have some sort of rack that they're kind of sitting on. Because the way I look at this right now is if they're like floating in water, and I don't think that's intentional. So
Oh, they
maybe
have
have
some sort of support to the.
yes,
Yeah,
sorry,
okay.
there's support to the back of them that makes them stand within the display. And then other than that, I would just make sure, or what I would do is probably have, a lot of shadow like coming down from the top, and then maybe like light coming through a window and starting to hit and reflect on the glass there, having like a little, like atmospheric fog kind of going on, and then like big bright reflections on the glass.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. I don't think I would want to overdo this one because there's already like a lot going on with those 3 displays. I don't think I would add too much in the back or anything because like in options B and C, you've got all this little stuff on the top, which is it's a nice touch, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think it's just focus on the main focus here.
So how do you think about that? Similar call, or would you take it a different direction?
I concur, except I'm thinking that maybe I'm not 100% sure. I'm just gonna put this out there. Elijah says it's a monkey paw.
Monkey paw. Okay, I like that.
So one thing I mean, it's possible, I don't know for sure, that maybe he did intend for some of these to be kind of marinating in a liquid of some kind. If that's true, you could do that with like with one and not with the others if you wanted to, or you could do it with all, with these 2 back here, obviously not this one because it's already been cracked open. But if you wanted to put liquid in some of these, then you kind of have to deal with like the distortion of the item inside being in the liquid, and then also having a top on it, like a screw top or something that would actually allow you to fill it like a proper, jar. So that would have kind of a different base and a different jar design. So I'm just putting that out there. If that was something that you intended, Elijah, to have liquid in there, then the design of the jar would have to be altered a bit. But if they're just display units, there's no liquid inside, then yeah, a stand would make sense. Nothing too crazy, right? Just a wire stand, like Nino was saying. And something you might even want to consider is maybe a handle or something at the top, a little bit more pronounced. It would give some personality to the canister or to the jar. They're pretty simple along the top in terms of design. But I think one thing that we noticed too is maybe exploring the possibility of an overlap with some of the jars, like maybe tucking one behind the other somewhere so that they're not so perfectly evenly spaced with like this kind of buffer area.
Yeah.
Just finding a way to maybe push some of the items back to give it more depth into the image. What do you think?
Yeah, if you were to do that, maybe another option you could think about is a lot of times these sort of bell jar displays, particularly if they're on the smaller side, will have a little stand that they will sit on to raise them up a little bit. And so maybe it doesn't just have the full bottom right on the wood, but it has like a little stand to raise it up, and then you have it there. That might be an option if you wanted just to change up the composition or try some variations with that. I agree with Nino's original comment. I'm also drawn to the upper angle on A, but I would say the same thing of, yeah, go ahead and just let the background kind of fade off. By the time you get to that upper shelf, we don't need to worry about having to render all of that stuff up there. Having a little bit of the one down here, that's fine, just to give a little context of what this is. And yeah, you could add labels. I was just noticing the comment there. You could add like little labels if you wanted to on these. I was trying to find an image earlier. I know that it's saved on my computer, but amongst the 500,000 files, I could not find it. And it was some glass bell jars that somebody had illustrated that were a little foggy, and they weren't like perfect crystal glass. They're a little foggy glass, and the light was coming through the side and hitting that glass, and it almost made the glass have this sort of glow appearance to it. That was really cool. So maybe you can look up some reference images of something on that lines and see if you can find that. If so, then you can get a really nice pop of kind of color and light off of these against what the background may be, just a really shadowed kind of dark tone for it to stand out against. And I happened to also come across this, and it reminded me of your little character there.
It's not creepy at all.
No, that's super creepy. But yeah, just a little stand like that and having your little skeleton on it. So I could totally see that working. Do remember that we are aiming for a general illustrative realism on these. It doesn't have to be completely realistic. You can have some, stylization or artistic impression with it. But we do like to see these largely painted and not just a drawing for the finals. So, okay, let's go ahead and move on. Elijah, hopefully that helps you out a little bit with your concept. Okay.
Someone dealt with it.
Yeah, thank you, Anna.
Thanks, Anna. We had some weird bot in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have Christina. All right, Christina has changed it up, going with the key. I like to see it. Some of the concepts, I guess, they weren't engaging enough. We had several repeats of people wanting to do the same concepts.
That happens every time we do this. So like I think for this one we had like 14 clues, but several people picked the same one because I guess it was just more interesting than the other one.
I'm gonna put Nino on the spot and ask him which one he would have done.
Which one would you have done?
I probably would have done the dagger. I think I would have done the dagger or the pendant. Those two are probably my favorites.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just being able to like design the ornate blade and all that would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for this one, Christina's doing the key. Now, the key, the unique things about the key is that there is a glass vial that is part of the main shaft of the key. And at the end of the key, instead of just the teeth going one direction, it goes off in cardinal directions, like left, right, top, down, or north, south, east, west, however you want to say it. And the rest of the design was largely up to them. I didn't have it set in any specific location. It'd just be someplace around the manor that somebody might find this key. The vial was also filled with a red liquid. What kind of liquid is that? Who knows? One can only guess. But she's got that here. Went with the kind of classic Cthulhu, body look with the tendrils on it, and gives a couple of different options for where it might have been found. On a box, hanging on a cellar area, on a nail.
Good solution.
Yeah, or like a hidden brick was removed and it was found back in those as well. So, some concepts with the box
I
there.
think Christina is here, actually. Yes, I think so.
Okay. Christina, yeah, if you are here, you have any comments, questions, feel free to drop it in there. We'll try to address that. All right. One thing that I do really like to see here is you've gone through a lot of different concepts. You're thinking through like what the overall decor is, trying to give some interesting and varied locations for the clue itself, and even getting some color combinations. That's all really nice. So let me toss it to Nino. Nino, you're looking at this. How are you kind of seeing it? What's catching your eye? What are some tips that you would give?
I love this one. I think it's really cool, but I'm wondering if it's like too much. Like you're designing like a mosaic for the box and everything like that. Which again, overall, I think that's fantastic. But I think it takes away focus from the key itself.
Yep.
I would also consider making the key design maybe a little less, again, like kind of Cthulhu. Maybe push the design in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
Make it a bit older. I know it's just a sketch, so you might be getting to that during the rendering stage. But make sure, maybe throw some rust on it. It doesn't have to be, incredibly rust or anything like that, but just show a little bit of wear to it, maybe some scuffs and scratches. And then lastly, for me, I think make sure the liquid reads as liquid. I think an easier way to do that is if you have it, whatever section of your key you want to have filled with that liquid, have it like 3/4 of the way full so that you can kind of see like that gap or that little air bubble in there. And then you can show that it is made of liquid, sorry, because right now it's totally full. Like it looks like it goes up to the top, that key design, or the liquid goes up to the top of the key design there. And right now it looks like it's a reflective metal, like it's like a dyed metal or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think just push it down a little bit, especially when it's like, if you have it on an angle or sitting flat or horizontal, you'll be able to show that air bubble or a little bit of the waves, if you will, a little bit more clearly. But other than that, if I were to choose one of these to go forward with, I might go with option 2, but remove the bricks. Like I just might have it hanging on like a piece of wood there with the nail going through it. This way you can show a lot of textures on there. And then simplify the key, or you might be able to go with one of the keys in the boxes, so like A, B, or C at the bottom there. But again, I would crop in a lot closer so that the focus is the key and less of the box. But yeah, otherwise it's great.
Okay. What was your thoughts?
No, I agree with everything Nino just said. I like totally am on board with the hanging key, so that's like option two. But like he said, just putting it basically hanging on a nail on a plank of wood kind of thing,
Hmm.
on a board. I would actually make that loop a little bit bigger. It looks a bit too tight to get on top of the nail.
Yeah.
Like you'd have to put the nail into it instead of hanging it on the nail. So I would just make that loop much bigger, like 3 or 4 times the size, so that it fits comfortably
Yeah.
over the nail. Design wise, let's go back to this. So this there's like the body of the key is good, and like what Nino mentioned about the liquid and all that. I'm not going to repeat it. My issue is with the top of the key. It's reading a little bit modern, like sleek, almost like futuristic, right? It's just a really smooth,
Yeah.
sleek design. So
Well,
maybe,
it's sort of a minimalist.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like you want to go ornate because you're going so ornate in other things down here that you've designed. I think it would be maybe worth considering just making this a little bit more complex in shape. Maybe taking all these tentacle parts and just twisting them into a knot here at the top or something like that,
Hmm.
so that it looks a bit more antique-y, more ornate, more in line with the rest of the vibe of these things, these ideas you've got. And then like Nino said, adding the wear and everything to it, the material.
Hmm.
It's very very smooth and very new right now. So just keep that in mind. I know this is just a sketch, right? So obviously you didn't paint the whole thing, but just going forward, that's what I would do with it.
Yeah, I had a similar impression, and earlier I went and pulled some references. Same thing with the weapon that we saw in the dagger of, hey, go look at some cool historical weapons, and then start modifying from that starting point. I'd say the same thing with some old keys. So here's just a collection I came across. Each one of these just has kind of a different character, a different flavor to it. And you could see how you could modify any of these and kind of and merge it into the concept that you have, right? And you want to find kind of the balance between the two. So like this has a big cool top ring to it. This one has a neat sort of double color to it. Part of it's kind of the old silver tone, and then you have the gold tone as well. Very intricate. Has a really cool shape. Spiral design is interesting. Then also looking at like the teeth. The teeth here, we don't see that these days, and we don't have keys with teeth like that. But it's quite interesting visually. So maybe taking some inspiration off of something like that, just to change up a bit of what the normal would be. This one is made practically like a lamp post, right? I mean, the top of it is just kind of got that flavor to it, which is interesting. Uh, this one is really cool. Like it's like a banner with like writing on it, with this twisting thing up to some sort of crown.
Well, this could even be kind of a cool solution for your tentacles, right?
Yeah.
As they wrap up the key, like what do you do with them at the top? You could kind of do something like this, or even something that's like a Celtic knot, right? So that you can
Hmm.
find a way to weave all those pieces together.
Yeah. I feel like what you've got is a good idea. I like the elements that you're bringing to the table. But now let's bring some of the historical influence as well, set it in the right time period, make it kind of properly strange.
More
Right?
mysterious.
Yeah. Okay. As far as the other ones, I agree. I think that two would allow you to crop in the closest on the key as far as which concept you go with. If you do that, some subtle things that you could do is maybe there are multiple nails. Maybe this is where they used to hang multiple keys. You would also have drag marks on the wood right here because you would hang it up, and that teeth, every time you do that, would drag on that wood. And so you give a little.
It's really subtle, though.
Yeah, it's really subtle, but you're just kind of thinking through what that is and how it's interacting with the environment, that sort of thing. So hopefully that helps. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with it. But let's move on to the next one. Okay. Okay, now Nicholas, we're going to start by taking a look at this one because you also have the gun concepts here. So to answer your question on this one, no, we're going to just be using the regular pistol. You don't really need to design a new pistol. I could have been more clear about that in the
Yeah, our apologies.
yeah
It was intended
brief.
to be a normal
Yeah.
period pistol of the time, right? Whatever the time was, 1920s, 1930s.
So the one that you have here that you sketched out, yeah, that's right in line with just kind of the period pistol. That's fairly, it's ambiguous, just normal, typical, yeah. Okay. So on this one, Nicholas was going for a scene where somebody found the gun that was lost into the mud. So it's part of it's kind of submerged into the mud and it's just laying there. And I really like that element across all of these. I am definitely getting that vibe. And you went with the standard gun, which is looking good. But we're also introducing some more elements.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got lots of tentacles going on, and the concept of the hand. So I think you're actually creating more work than what's needed for this particular little brief. So I'd say, go ahead and pull the tentacles out. Probably don't need the hand because the body itself will probably be more interesting than the gun.
Well, I mean, the gun in the hand of a corpse, I mean, that becomes a crime scene, right? That's not a clue anymore. It's just a whole situation that somebody got shot, right? But we just want the gun to be just kind of there, like it was dropped in the mud and you found it. So for that, your option C is probably the more appropriate one.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, Nicholas. You've got a good ability to approach visual narrative of like trying to tell a story and set a mood, set a scene very efficiently. And we've talked about doing another art challenge that is a little more of that line where it's like you're depicting a scene taking place. So keep your eyes out for that because that's probably going to be right up your alley. But for this one, we're going to just scale back the complexity more to like what you've got with C here. So with those notes, and that's kind of, the adjustments on the direction there. Nino, you're looking at this, you've got a simple gun, it's laying in the mud. What do you do, I don't know, to make it work well, to make it an interesting image? And how do you kind of balance how do I be creative with this when it's a fairly simple brief?
Well, I mean, I feel with this one, the way you can be creative is more so in how you not design the gun, but like the design elements of the gun, because we know we have to have this standard looking pistol, but like the actual handle of it, you could have some sort of carvings or design on that. It doesn't have to be Cthulhu or anything like that, but that would be like a simple way that I would design it. If I were to make it more interesting. And ultimately, again, C works really well. I would just bury it a little bit more. Like imagine like a person or an animal like stepped over it, they didn't notice it, and it got buried in the mud.
Yeah.
It's tough to recognize. It's tough to recognize that it is a gun from afar, but you have this close up of it, and that's how you know. So like I would imagine someone stepped on the front, it got pushed down into the mud a little bit, and then you have the sun. It's daytime or something, and there's like a little glint of light. Or even nighttime. There's like a little glint of light from the moon or the sun just catching a little bit of that metal. And that's how, someone stumbled upon it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Overall, you just got to push it deeper into the mud. You could even like have it, it's like somebody who had the gun and they just dropped it and went, face forward where like the actual, the tip of the gun went straight down. So like, that's another way that you could maneuver it. But yeah, definitely I can see with some small changes to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think getting more submerged, whether that's kind of like just tilted down more into the mud or the back end is kind of tilted down and the barrel's pointing up a little bit. If you're talking about, like somebody's been stepping around it, we could even show like a muddy footprint
That's a good idea.
that's there, or maybe it's even partially over. Say they stepped right on the handle, and you see like the back half of the boot mark over here, and that other end's been pushed down. So we could give a little narrative there. I also like the idea of maybe this is a moonlit scene. That could be kind of interesting, getting to play with a little different color
Cold light.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about the rendering on this one, and the idea of like there could be some subtle etching or markings or personal
Maybe
marks.
initials carved
Yeah.
into it.
Some strange rune that got put on there from the whatever secret society or whatever, that sort of thing. So you're right on the line, the right track. Honestly, the positioning of any of these guns is pretty good. I personally would go with A or C, I think, for the direction we're going for. B really works well if you're doing like the hand thing with the other stuff. But for the gun alone, probably going with either one of these. Good stuff, Nicholas. Okay, Janine is up next, and she is sketching the ring.
I think Janine is here as well.
Hey, Janine, welcome.
And Kiko is here. Hi, Kiko.
So for this one, Janine is going to illustrate a ring. Now the ring has, as you can see here, she put the description. It's sitting upon an open windowsill at night, and it has the shape of a skull with one cyclopsian eye that's set with a green gem, and there's a strange rune carved on the inside of the band. For me, I think A most clearly conveys that nature of the ring.
Cyclops
Yeah.
element of it. Yeah.
However, the biggest thing that I see here is making sure that we get the eye centered, because we've got the face turned almost complete to profile, but we've got the eye on this side of what we consider the head, right? So the center of the eye would be much more over there, and we wouldn't be able to see much of the far side of the eye. When you are putting the gem in there, make sure we are trying to give it some dimensionality. Obviously, this is just a quicker sketch and kind of just jotted in where that gem would be located. But consider kind of what shape it is, and give some facets to the gem and give it a little, bump out. So we're approaching something like this. We're putting it on the windowsill. What are your thoughts, Nino? Any directions that you would give Janine on this?
Yeah, I think A or C would work really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of preference because they both do work. They kind of hit the mark. Both of those hit the mark for this brief. There's only a couple things that really stand out that I want to clarify. One, what I would want to clarify is on option A, you've got these kind of spirals going around the side of the skull there. I would just want to make sure it's clear whether they're carved in or if they're like kind of standing out there. You want to make sure that's clear in the rendering there, because you could even change, like the ring could be silver and then that little bit of filigree could be gold or something if you want to play around with it. If it is standing out. Otherwise, if it's carved in, you would probably just keep it all silver or whatever color you want it there. And then lastly, I don't think you need clarification on this, but what I would do is that that rune, it's so small, and I know it's a ring, but what I would do is like change the rune, make it more elongated so that it fits a little bit more of the band. And that's kind of it there. You can have that on this still, no problem. It's just you don't have to make it super big, but maybe like 2 times the length. So instead of having it really small, it's just a little bit longer there. And I think that would kind of solve some of those problems there, because it doesn't look, it looks a little out of place. Like it's just put there. It doesn't look like it's part of the actual ring, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Okay, now, Janine, when you get into the actual illustration, remember we keep it really tied up on the ring here. not important to actually show that much of the windowsill or where it's really located. I just wrote that so that you had a place in mind. You didn't have to just pull something out of the air. Uh, as long as it basically is sitting on a piece of wood, maybe you see just a bit of the bottom of the windowsill there, like that's enough. We don't need much context other than the ring itself sitting on the wood.
Yeah, I would say don't render it too small, too far away from it, right? We need to really see it. We need to get close. It's the clue, so we're looking right at it. So, allow it to fill the frame a bit more.
Like that is pretty much the smallest that you would want the ring in the total area of your canvas. Like if the green was everything that was illustrated, then your ring size there would be about right. It shouldn't be any smaller than that for the total area of the canvas being painted. Now, it's still up to you what kind of metal. I'm thinking probably not real shiny. It kind of hits me as not like a chromy ring. So, see about adding a little age to it, whether it's gold or iron or silver or whatever.
Or iron and gold, like Nino was saying. I just want to say, if you end up picking A, it might be beneficial to the illustration and maybe help you out a little bit to rotate it just a little bit more so that we get a 3/4 view of the head and that we can see more of the gemstone, because right now if you keep it here, it's going to cut half of the gemstone out.
Yeah.
And if you just turn it a little bit, we can see more of the back of the band a little bit, and we can see more of the front of the ring as well. So just something to think about when you're actually picking your final design and position. Wasn't it supposed to be an iron ring? I think
Oh yeah,
it
I did. Oh, sorry, I did say that. It is iron ring.
You can add other metals to it.
Yeah, you could accent it with something else.
Yeah.
Now, if you were sketching this, you're having difficulty working out the perspective or the overall, angle and stuff. What I do is I'd go out to Sketchfab, the website. If you haven't been out there, it's got 3D models that you can orient in your browser without having to download them or anything. I reckon they probably have a ring that is at least similar.
There's also a website that sells a lot of rings almost exactly like this. So you could find those. I think they're called oh gosh, I forget the name of the website. But if you just Google skull ring, or dark skull ring, you'll probably get the website.
Yeah. No, we're not really going to go for a glowing ring on this one. Just looking at the chat there. This is fairly innocuous, kind of non-magical item. Yeah. Now, Marion also went with the ring.
Hi, Marion. Marion's here too.
Oh, she?
Yeah.
Hey, Marion, welcome. Okay, so here, now you took it a different direction, going with an animal skull, because it wasn't specified what kind of skull it was. I do kind of like the creativity of going with maybe an unconventional option. Went with a couple of different initial concepts there, and then chose your favorites. Cleaned them up some. Okay. I really like these drawings. Nice and clean. Very understandable what I'm looking at. But let's start with you.
Oh, I wanted to ask Nino what he thought.
Okay. Nino, why don't you start us off here?
I think these are a lot of fun. I think these are really cool and creative designs here. I really love the bird design. My only thoughts, because I think the way you've cropped it, you're not seeing a ton of the windowsill there. The focus is clearly on the ring. The one thing that I would add is, I don't know what the correct name of it is, but there's just that little section of the eye on the ring in the middle. I would incorporate that little kind of triangular shape to indicate that it is kind of the eye on the bird there, and I think that will have a slightly better read. But I think either the bird one or whatever kind of skull in the middle there, one of those two I think would probably fit this one the best. The one on the right, again, I think it looks cool, but I think it's a little too far out there. with all the complexities of the band. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, start adding some forms to this, like some light and shadow. This is gonna really pop.
Yeah, I agree. Now, how are you feeling about the three? Would you also go with the bird?
Personally, I think I would go with this one. I might try to find some way to simplify some of these little details
Hmm.
in here, if possible. And I might even simplify the band, possibly, just because there's so many little shapes going on. That I might possibly do that. It's worth trying out to see if it just improves the
Hmm.
readability of the design. I think this is cool, but I think this would be more difficult to position an illustration in a way that looks natural because of that point. So in reality, unless you had something to hook this onto, it would probably just flop over. Um, and it's okay, but this one at least maybe you could get it to stand if this edge was more flat here. You could maybe get it to stand like that. So just thinking about it, I mean, a lot of the times I choose designs based on like how I can pose them,
Hmm.
and sometimes I may like a certain design, but if I don't think I can pose it naturally, I just avoid it and go to a design that is more posable.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's just me. It's just something to keep in mind. I agree with Nino. I think this is just a lot of shapes that might create some confusion as to what the object actually is, whereas these are a lot more clear that they're rings. Um, but yeah, I like the runes. I think you did a good job, especially here. These are really clear.
Hmm.
They're etched in. And I like what you did here with this still like there's suggestion of detail and interesting like a moderate amount of texture surface information.
Hmm.
But I would probably go with this one. I don't know. That's just you can go with either really.
Yeah, either of those, I agree, are superior to the third one. Third one, I mean, the skull is kind of interesting, but overall, it starts getting kind of ambiguous with the shape, amorphous with the shape, and it's not as understandable as being a ring. So I think these are more effective on that route. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna second as well that you got to be really careful if you're going to try to stand this up so that it doesn't look like it's about to fall over. A couple of options is let it lay on its side. I mean, that would be one way. Another is maybe it's sitting in the corner on the windowsill, and so it is literally pushing up against that other side piece that would be down here, right? It's like, okay, well, I guess that's also an option. Um, or, yeah, I guess if this one's flattened off a little bit. I agree. One of the things you have to think about here is like, is this ring, particularly if you use this one, is this ring like a gilded actual skull, or is this an artistic sculpture? In which case, if it's artistically sculpted, then maybe it doesn't have, like you were saying, that high of fidelity of detail. Maybe it's stylized a little bit. Maybe the areas that you want to be a little fatter or fatter. Maybe the teeth are more stylistic in their shape. And that's totally fine too. I do like your thought about having the eye
Mm-hmm.
piece on the outside to give a little more of that feel, or even if part of the skull kind of wrapped up on the edge or kind of grasped around
Yeah, it's like almost
like a
happening
lid.
here
Yeah,
a little bit.
that would be kind of interesting. That makes it feel like it stay set on that shape. Good stuff, Marion. Good to have you back in another Swatches activity. So let's go on.
This is Raphael's. I don't know if Raphael is here. He might actually. I think he's probably at. I don't know. I was going to say at work, but it's already 7 p.m. our time, so I think he's on our time zone, so he's probably at home, I would guess.
Yeah. Okay, Raphael, wonderful layout here on your page. Nice, clean concepts and I really like the grounded nature. I assume that you looked at some fireplaces to design this because they look completely believable. As far as the envelopes, I like the options here. Um, I go more towards one. That's kind of more what I had in mind. Instantly understandable as an envelope. Uh, I think you worked your name in there. Very
Sneaky, sneaky.
sneaky. Yeah. He's the leader of the group of people.
Of the cult.
Yeah. And okay, I I'm kind of split here because one, I really like the fireplaces because they're drawn well and they're designed well. But the problem we're going to run into as far as kind of a clue illustration like this is that the envelope is going to be so small if we're pulled back far enough to see the entire fireplace. And I feel like what we'll probably have to do is more like just pull into the envelope in the tray, right? I forget what you call this.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'll call it a tray. And like if it were just this, then that would be fine, and then the envelope would be large enough. So, how are you kind of reading that, Nino? Getting too small, or what's
Yeah,
your
no,
thoughts there?
no, I agree. I personally like 3C the best. I would just definitely crop in on it. And in terms of which envelope, yeah, I think one or two will work fine.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, if you did decide to go with two, I would maybe just like elongate it a little bit, similar to
Yeah.
something more standard envelope. But I do like the colors and everything. But outside of that, once you crop in and you have it in that tray area, I would probably remove the smoke. I would want it to look like it's been sitting there for a few days, like someone tossed it in and forgot about it,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to look like it's recently been done. And then just have like some of the edges burnt off a little bit more. But again, personally, I might avoid the smoke. What do you guys think?
Um,
I don't know. I think the option to have like some glowing embers is something that I would have a hard time not putting in my piece if it was mine because I like glowy things.
Hmm.
But it also would mean that you're doing smoke over a blank background because essentially you're not doing the whole fireplace.
yeah, it's tricky. I like this design. I agree with Nino, though. I would make it more horizontal shape, the envelope,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's clear that it's an envelope, right? I think this is a little unclear what this is. Here, holding down the flap. This is more clear. So, I know it's, okay, kind of standard to have the wax,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call it?
Seal.
Seal, yes, on here, but it's readable, like it's understandable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when in doubt, like readable is more important than everything else. And you could complicate this more if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to have some of these elements in here in the seal design. You could do that, right? I think these are really cool just as concepts. Like you did a really nice job, and obviously, I think Raphael does concept art for a living. So obviously, I'm not shocked that he would do this so well. But I agree with the guys. I think zooming in, cropping in real tight here, just so, can you zoom in? I'm not able to do it here. Yeah. Where basically your image is this, and then you could include, if it was mine, I would put like some coals, maybe some of them are glowing,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are not glowing, some of them are just like, dead, and then, or maybe a piece of wood or some sticks, mm-hmm. or a half burnt log or something under there, just if you wanted to give it more context where it is, but not draw the whole fireplace. You could even have maybe a couple of just bricks in the background behind it, just to kind of give it something back there. Maybe to put some smoke against if you wanted to. But yeah, I would kind of lose the rest of it here, and even this bottom part. I don't know if I would keep any of this. I might just keep the coals and a piece of a log or something. Maybe even a little bit of this information here in the front if you wanted to add that kind of metal grill to the front of it. It was part of the tray. Maybe include that. I don't know. It really depends. I don't think you even need that, but that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, that was several of the points that I was going to say, as well as adding in a half burnt log or large coals that can be sitting there. Maybe the envelope had partly burned away, and you can see some of the papers that were in there, and they're sticking out a little bit.
Even some of the writing inside.
Yeah, maybe you can see just a couple little scribbles in there. This one has also got a really nice design as far as kind of the metal grill look to it. So I think either one of those. I do like the angle of this one.
Yeah, it's more visible.
Yeah, and just really honing down on that smaller area. In which case, if you do that, then this envelope realistically could be about half that size in comparison to how big this would be. If we're talking about actually being able to change the proportions of some of these, then I agree. I would go with 2 with the wax seal if we could expand it out and be more of the proportions of 1. That would be a nice option there.
Just want the viewer to understand what it is really quickly.
All right, Raphael, thank you for the beautiful sketches and the concepts, and we look forward to your final. Now, Zach and Alan, the last two both did the pendant.
I do not know if they are here, but if not, you can watch this later.
Now, Zach went ahead and wrote a backstory to the pendant, the locket, sorry. And that wasn't supplied or requested. But hey, if it helps you develop the scene, it doesn't compromise the image in any way. So that's all right. Again, on these, I want to say, I think you really gave us what we asked for, as far as, an old locket that opened up. On one side, we've got the craggly, grizzly, old-looking dude on one side, and then for some weird reason, there's a canine human tooth on the other side. I don't know why.
He gave it, as a memento. Someone could remember him.
Yeah.
By his bloody tooth.
So, several good sketches here. Nino, which one catches your eye? Which one do you suggest he go with?
I think these are all well done, but my eyes immediately go to option C. I think it's like dead on. You've got a little bit of the portrait, and you've got the canine tooth right in there. Some small suggestions is, I like what you've done in option A, how you've got the tooth kind of strapped down there. I would add that into option C. And you've also got you've got a little bit of that design, something like some sort of like paper or something that it's kind of coming through. I'm not exactly sure, but I would maybe consider adding that into option C as well. And then just make it's probably sitting on top of like a cloth or something like that, but make that a little bit darker, and then you can have the pendant, a little bit more of, whether it's silver or gold, it'll just pop off the background there. And that's kind of it for me. I mean, I don't really see how I would want to push this, because it's hitting all the right notes. It's got everything indicated in the brief. It's relatively simple. It's not pushing it too far in one direction. It's meeting that clue. So just a little bit more on that tooth there and that background. I think this will be perfect.
All right. What about you? Do you have the same reaction? Do you have a different piece?
Yeah, I feel the same way about option C. I feel like it just, you can see the picture better, right, at that angle. So it's a little bit easier to see the portrait. I do like, however, some of these edges here, this design on the edge of the locket. It looks pretty good. These are good too, but this one is just more striking, I guess. Including this part up here is just very readable. I feel like there's a couple of things personally. I mean, it's not to say that this is wrong or anything, but just that I would do is maybe not have the crack here. you know, I might stain maybe the edges of the photograph or fade them out, but I wouldn't have a line going right through the face. And the other thing is, if I didn't know the brief that this was a tooth, I wouldn't know that this is a tooth from looking at it. I feel like it maybe there needs to be something more done here to indicate that this is a human tooth.
Well, I think certainly when it gets to rendering, having the right color, having the right texture on it is going to help that to read. Nino, I like your thought of adding the strap so that there's some way this thing is staying in place is good. I am unclear on what it's setting on. So, that will need to be made a little more clear. Is it fabric? Is it laying on the floor? I don't really much care what it is, but you'll have to go figure out and determine something specific. I think the fabric here actually works pretty well. So even if you wanted to adapt that in some way or
Could
something.
have it standing up against a vase or something behind it,
Instead of the crack, I think I'd go with your option of either it's starting to stain or fade in order to give it a little change or interest visually to it. Otherwise, hits the right notes, and I think it's going well. Yeah, good concept. Last up is Alan. Also working on the pendant. So here, these are some pretty well-developed concepts here, starting with the locket design itself. Some beautiful, intricate concepts on this.
I really like the top of that there.
Yeah, the top of this one, really nice. Somebody's using the symmetry tool, would be my guess. Yeah. Now, Nino, you've had a chance to look at these. Which one of these stands out to you?
I really like all of these, to be honest. They are definitely above and beyond what this kind of spot illustration would call for sure. But like, if this was like a piece of card art or something like that, yeah, I think these would all be, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think B in this case would be my choice. I think it reads well. It's got a nice clear focus on there. So for example, like option C, I love everything going on in there. I love the little bits, like those little storytelling elements that you have.
Yeah.
But, it's a lot. You're going to have to crop in on option C and really get a zoom on the actual pendant there, because otherwise my focus kind of gets lost. And you want to really make sure it's clear what you're reading. Option A, you could go with as well. I think it's clear focus. Again, I would crop in a little bit more. You could even consider, like, for the sake of this illustration, because it's just like more of a spot illustration, you could consider just even removing the background and just rendering the hand with the pendant in it. But yeah, in this case, I think option B is what I would go with. And if you wanted to render all the background, I think you could, because it'll still be clear. But I don't know if you have to take it that far. Like, you could just like take a little portion of that, similar to the references we were showing at the beginning. I think I don't remember the artist's name, but Olga something had those just simple floor, simple tabletop that you could put right over the bottom there and show some of that white background there. But again, I feel like I'm being a little bit harsh in my feedback, because they all work well.
Yes.
But for the sake of the illustration, you do have to come in and probably crop it a bit to make sure that you hit the mark there. What about you guys?
No, I had the same sort of read. I think you could go with B here. Basically, just crop it down to a little area around the locket itself.
Yeah,
The
I might
chain is
include
nice.
the book and then just like a small section here of the desk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how I feel about this water. It's a bit odd to have like this spill here. I don't know if it's worth including that.
I feel like it might be pushing it a little bit that it's filled with seawater or that it drains seawater. Without context, it's unclear like why that is there. You have to kind of make a little leap to assume that it was filled with water because that's not usually what would happen. Yeah, I think you could probably take that out and then not compromise the image as a whole or the concept as a whole.
If you wanted to have some element kind of interacting here beneath the locket, you could even just put like a small cloth or something coming across the table, right? Or a handkerchief underneath if you wanted something to come out this way.
Now, if you want to show that maybe somebody brought it in from the rain or picked it out of, a pool or something, I mean, you could show water on it and show a couple of drips and be like, okay, it came from somewhere wet. Again, I don't know that it's really worth it. I don't know that it's going to add that much to the narrative to make it wet. I do like the idea, though, of what you're doing with it, kind of the creativity of it draining seawater. But I'm kind of split on that. You do bring up a good question: how to show ornate locket when both sides are open. Yeah, because generally you see the ornateness of a locket on the cover, but obviously if you can see it open, you don't get that. One option is, I particularly like the design here on the first one, because it's not overt. I feel like these are a little more Cluthulhu overt. This one I just feel like is more ornate. But if you basically got that design and just put it on the inside behind the tooth, you could get a similar sort of feeling and infuse it with a bit more of that ornateness.
There are other ways too. So there are some lockets in which I'm going to try to do this here, even though there's enormous lag, where there's kind of a detailed frame happening around, the edge, and it's really only the front part of the locket that opens, right? So this part in here opens, and then there's kind of a frame, an ornate frame that goes around the back of it.
Yeah, right? Kind of like you would think of just like a regular picture frame. The frame itself is always visible, and it's just that center area that sort of opens up, and you can get the
so you could,
floral sort of pattern around the outside.
If you wanted to, you could get in there, but I mean, it's not strictly necessary. That's just because you asked that question on how to handle that.
And this is a very small thing. I know that you are a good artist, and I know obviously your sketching skills are good. Minor thing. If you do B, we are getting a directly straight line on the side of this book where it's not tilting. We don't see the side of the book, but it's also not leaning the other way. So I might just adjust that book angle a little bit to do one or the other. Okay. Guys, that is all of the feedbacks. But we do want to take a second. If you guys got questions, we will spend a minute here taking some of your questions. I'll give you a moment to type that in. I know that there was a little lag on the stream. Also want to let you know we do still have a couple of places available in the summer classes. They will be starting in just over a week. Now Nino, he is teaching the digital painting basics class. Had some really good feedback last term from that. And he's got a couple of releases left in that one. This is a really good class for people who have not had proper training in digital painting. Maybe you've just done traditional drawing. You haven't really learned Photoshop, how to do digital painting and that. You don't know different methods of doing things or efficient ways to approach painting. He goes over all that.
It's a really solid foundational class, and it's good for anyone that is trying to get into more complex things but keeps running into problems with painting, with things like edges and forms and values. This is a really good class to handle that, and always gets really good feedback from the students. they like you a lot. It's always really positive.
Now we also have material rendering just sold out, but we do have the advanced class fantasy illustration, which is like essentially doing from working from a brief, kind of MTG style fantasy illustration, full characters with backgrounds in a scene. This is for advanced students.
We're making all new briefs for that
all
too,
new
so
briefs
it won't be the same as the other students. If you've seen the other student work, it's different every time.
Yep. Going to have a lot of fun in that class. Also got some really good feedback on that one before. All right, we getting any questions from anybody on this?
Thanks for participating, Elijah.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of participants that were previously students from last term or the term before. So it's really cool to see everybody again, and you can see a lot of their finished work on the website, on our website, on swatchesacademy.com. If you go to the student gallery, you'll see a lot of today's participants. Their class finals are posted there.
Yep. We're also going to be having the Swatches Open House Discord. It's just a hangout, open format. That will be this Sunday, July the 2nd. And you can see the announcement on the Discord server. I'll try to put that in the video description. But yeah, feel free to drop by there and hang out with us. If you have questions for us, feel free, we'll be available. And you can ask us that, or just meet the other community members or other classmates if you're in a class. Okay, had a question. I don't know why that just suddenly dropped off the page there. When is Diana's on-demand character class going to be available?
Oh gosh, well, I'm actually fine-tuning it right now, and I'm going to be recording it probably next week. So we still have to kind of run some tests with uploading our recorded content onto the new site. Like we're going to be redoing the site. It shouldn't take that long. So it'll be sometime this summer that my previous classes, which are not listed right now because we're doing all this, they're going to be relisted there as fully recorded, and I will put an option there for feedback if anyone wants feedback, so you can kind of access the class without the feedback if you just want to see the lectures and the demos and the PDFs and all that stuff. But I'll also make feedback available for anyone who wants it, and depending on the level of interest in that, that could be either recorded feedback, where I'll just record feedback for someone every week. Or if there's a lot of people interested, we can do a live session for feedback. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work yet, but sometime during the summer, my previous classes, the character one and the environment diorama one, will be back. And then we're also, all three of us, working on new things or planning new things, new classes. So hopefully there'll be some new ones coming out in the fall, and then also at the beginning of the year.
Yep. All right. I think that's about it. That's the only questions I saw. So, hey, everybody, we appreciate you hanging out with us. And we will have another live stream in 2 weeks when we take a look at the finals. The people who work on the pieces, send them back in. So be sure to stick around for that. Hang out with the Swatches community over on the Discord. There'll be announcements when that stream will be exactly. And yeah, feel free. You can go out there and download this PDF if you want to sketch out some of these concepts and clues for yourself. So with that said, hey, Nino, thanks for hanging out with us again.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.